This is Danny Flexen here for Seconds Out. Delighted to be joined by unbeaten super lightweight Harlem Eubank. Harlem, how are you?
Not too bad, mate. Not too bad. Could be better. Could be worse. Um, yeah, gutted that I couldn't get out and fight this weekend, but it's um it's a crazy situation and crazy week, unfolding. Whether not knowing if you're gonna fight or not, and then they made the decision that it wasn't gonna go ahead, which isn't ideal for the fighters. But in terms of the sport and on hindsight, it's maybe the right decision.
Yeah, I mean, it's a tricky one in that some people may attribute some of the blame for this to Conor Benn, who's one of the main eventers. They might look at your cousin, Chris Jr., and say, it's not his fault. We feel really bad for him, but he's had big fights. He's earned his money. It's not as big a hit for him. He'll get other big fights in the future, certainly, as well. But the undercard performers, and there's a lot of them, it's a struggle. I know we've seen some of them matched again and given new dates today, which is, credit to the promoters for that. But you're not one of them, as far as I'm aware, and you've gone through a whole training camp, and now you won't be paid through absolutely no fault of your own.
Yeah, it's not ideal, and hopefully I can get out again soon. Well, I have got a date, in the near future, which hopefully I can announce soon. But still, regardless of that, you prepare for a date, and if it gets pushed back, you're out of sync. You have to readjust, and you come up to the fight week, you prepare, you spar. When you're in the fight week, you're relaxing, you're eating very little to prepare for the weigh-in and to prepare for the fight. So to go through that whole process is, it's a lot of energy and a lot of preparation, and you don't get that back. But it's you just have to, I guess, put it in the bank of experience and recoup it and go again. And that's what I have to do now.
What was your initial reaction? I guess it was Wednesday when the news broke that there had been an adverse finding on the VADA test result for Conor Benn. It was kind of up in the air. No one seemed to know for sure whether the show would still go ahead. What was your initial reaction?
I couldn't believe it. I thought, because someone called me and was like, "Yo, this is happening." I'm obviously in the hotel, and I'm like, surely not. Like the gravity of this fight, you'd think, you just wouldn't expect that there's much that can actually affect the show going ahead or happening. And I did not expect something like this to occur, but every now and then it happens, and it puts a stain on the sport, but it's, yeah, I did not expect it at all. So shock was the first reaction, and then the next thing is, what's going on? Am I fighting? And you have to stay in that mindset of, I am fighting, because you can't, if you start to swear and you're like, what's going to happen type of thing, then it's hard to prepare when you're paying attention to everything you eat, and you're trimming down throughout the week. So you really have to keep that mindset like you're fighting, regardless of what's going on around. And that was kind of what I was trying to do. And the consensus from most people was that the fight would go ahead. So yeah, it was kind of a shock and a roller coaster of of the start of the week, and then the decision was made, and yeah, from there it's yeah, trying to think about recouping and figuring out what's next.
How informed were you throughout the process? Because as you said, on Wednesday, the consensus was the show would go ahead. I think the promoters had insisted it would go ahead, and then it got to Thursday morning, and the press conference was moved back a couple of hours. But I think we still thought is probably going ahead. When did that start to change, and how well informed were you about the developing story?
I think we was all really as informed as each other, from online, seeing reports and stuff, and from the consensus around the fight hotel. Everyone seemed to be on the same page, with little bits of news like it's probably going ahead, and then the morning of the presser, the presser got moved back, and from then I kind of thought, okay, there's some delegation going on here and some decisions being made, and I found out that evening, pretty much, that it's not going to go ahead. So a roller coaster of different emotions, but this is sometimes the game we're in. This is boxing, so it's just a part of it that's a little bit more frustrating, but you have to take it in your stride, I guess.
How much were yourself and excuse me, Chris Jr. able to support each other through this process, and not knowing what was going to happen, and then the eventual realization that the show was off? Because although you're very close, he's in the main event, he's directly affected, you're still there as well. Is there a sense of not wanting to bother him too much at the same time, or did you share in that together?
No, definitely. He's got his own thing going on, his own preparations, and I have mine. So you can't. Yeah, I don't want to bother him too much. Fight week, everyone has their own way to prepare. So, you want to be on your own time and have your own setup, and not really have people asking too many questions, and because a lot of the time as much as everyone else, and it's I know it can be frustrating for him, everyone asking him what's going on every minute. So all I knew is that I knew that he wanted to fight regardless, and he was prepared to fight. He done the work, and he got the weight off, and he was ready. So he must be more frustrated than anyone else, but hopefully it can be resolved, in the near future.
Give us an idea, and I understand if you don't want to get into specifics, but kind of how much, or as a percentage of what you earn, or whatever, how much does a training camp set you back? Like what's the financial damage, if you like, for a show like this being called off at such short notice?
I mean, it can vary, but it's hard to put into terms like that for me, because I live the life. Like, I'm not coming into a camp, spending 8 weeks there and then fighting. I'm in the gym all the time, so it's really a lifestyle for me. But yeah, it's not cheap, with travel and sparring, and but aside from that, it's all the energy you put in, the application, dedication, all the energy to actually prepare. There's a lot that goes into a camp. Everyone sees the end product, which is the fight, but there's a lot of mental and physical energy that goes into preparing to fight. So it's difficult for fighters when the date changes, and it's not one of the better parts of professional fighting. But like I say, it can be an aspect, as it has been on this occasion, and to a degree you have to take it in your stride and recoup and focus on what's next.
And you're a very positive person. We've spoken a number of times. You've been on the podcast, of course, as well. But in situations like this, is there an element of kind of resentment or frustration, anger, any of those sort of emotions because of what's happened? Again, through no fault of yours.
I'd say frustration, yeah, because something's happened that's out of your control. And when you can't control something like this, you've controlled all the variables you can to turn up fight night and put in a performance. And when something happens that's out of your hands, that prevents that, it's frustrating. So yeah, I think that's a natural emotion in this scenario, and I think it's just about, like I say, putting a positive spin on it and refocusing that energy, and getting in the right headspace to prepare for what's next.
Do you think, and it's hard to separate your personal kind of loss in this from the overall picture of the sport, but do you think the board ultimately made the right decision in deciding not to sanction the show?
Yeah, I think, boxing, it is a sport that needs to be it needs to be shown to the public, and this is a fight where it's mass it's reached the masses, it's reached the general public. So I think it's important in this one especially that it's presented to the public in the right way. And if the fight did go ahead, then maybe the public would have seen it in a lesser light to how we see boxing, because it is a sport and it does need to be a level playing field. And if someone has an advantage by legal means, then it's not a level playing field. And I think we need to show boxing in the light, in a good light that we everyone that loves boxing, it needs to be shown in that light to the general public. And I think this fight did reach that audience, and it would be a shame to show it in that light rather than the beautiful sport it is.
Was there ever any consideration, as far as you're aware, into running the show without the main event? It seems like they'd lose a lot of money, of course, and I'm not taking that lightly, but was that ever discussed?
I think there was talks of everything. There was, you're getting bits of information here and there. Will it be taken somewhere else? Will it be just the undercard? Like, there was, every scenario was kind of spoken of, amongst the circle of people up at the fight week. So it could, everything was spoken about. How can this still go ahead, type of thing. So no one really knew what the end result was, but I think everyone understands, that everyone understands that the decision that it shouldn't go ahead.
Now, although you can't reveal your new date just yet, can you give us a rough idea of how long it will be before we'll see you back out?
It's gonna be late November, so not too long, not too much time to feast up and eat what I like for a little bit. But yeah, I'll be straight back into the gym Monday to start to get to work for a good fight end of November.
How challenging is that? I mean, I suppose you haven't been through it before, so you're kind of predicting rather than knowing, but how challenging is it from a mental perspective to have been on that high? You always want to peak on fight night mentally and physically, to kind of coming back down, the disappointment, and then you've got to get yourself revved back up again for training camp.
Yeah, I guess it can be difficult. I guess it takes practice and patience, and it can take a lot to do that, but you have to do it. It's got to be done. It's you've got to get yourself in the right headspace to go again. You can't let a scenario like this affect your future performances, and you have to find a way that works for you to get in the headspace to go through that training camp again and produce something at the end of it.
Good stuff. Well, I wish you the very best. As I said, my sympathy is with you and all the undercard fighters, and obviously Chris Jr. as well. So fingers crossed, back out as soon as possible, like you've said. And I can't imagine that something like this will ever happen again. Touch wood. It's unlucky enough happen, but it's like being struck by lightning, isn't it?
Yeah. You know what I mean? You never expect it, so that's it. You just got to roll with the punches, I guess. And yeah, let's hope it doesn't.
Fingers crossed. Cheers, mate. Really appreciate you speaking. What's been a difficult time, and yeah, hope you bounce back as quick as possible.
Cheers, mate.